And you viewer are my invisible panelists. So remember, CTV Big Debate is the hashtag to use so that we can incorporate your comments, your views and your questions in our discussion tonight. Dr. Rogers, Dr. Muhumuza, and Ms. Nalunga. If I call you Dr. Nalunga, please just accept, because today it seems you're among,
okay,
we are among doctors.
We are. So,
we are among doctors.
Okay,
very glad to have you all on the Big Debate tonight. I believe for all of you, it's a maiden appearance on the Big Debate, right?
It is.
It is for me. I've been here, but in the morning.
Yes,
so I don't know what the morning is like. So it's like now I've covered the day, morning and evening.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Dr. Muhumuza, I was with you at an event earlier today. Ms. Nalunga was also there, and you were distributing blank checks. And so I'm tempted to distribute a blank check this evening as we begin.
To revenge.
To revenge by distributing a blank check. You know, many people have been discussing the economy, not because they're experts in economics, but because they are feeling the economic situation in their pockets. The president did come out to address this issue. And I'd like to begin by just hearing from each one of you, you know, or your quick, you know, points from the president's address, and whether it did, you know, touch on the issues that matter to the Ugandans. I will start with the person closest to me, Ms. Nalunga.
Okay, thank you so much for having me here again and again, because I have been here, I think, about 2 times. Also in the morning. I have never been here at night. So thank you so much for the invitation. The issue of the economy and the president's speech, it was clear. One, about reducing taxes, you know, and I know today we had a meeting. Somebody was saying that now we know where the president got the advice, you know, the backup, you know, advice on not giving subsidies and also reducing taxes. As you are aware, that the economy is really, the commodities are going up, fuel, soap, and so on. So the highlight was no subsidies, no reduction of taxes. He gave a number of reasons. Some of them were, you know, compelling reasons, but some of them really are like saying we need the money. That if they reduce the taxes, for example, on fuel, I know fuel is a cash cow. That we are going to reduce on what we have, the envelope, which is true, because today we need, the challenges are many, infrastructure challenges, hospitals, education, we need the money. But again, I think it's important to give hope to the people. And for me, my take there would be really, government can look at other ways where they can be able to squeeze somewhere else, so that they can reduce some taxes on, for example, on fuel. There are lots of leakages. For example, in the tax exemptions, the issue of tax exemptions has been on the table for a long time. The way they are given, the way they are managed, although they are in our tax laws, but they go beyond. So for me, I think reducing some taxes it's a will, government can be able to do it. The challenge is whether that reduction can be reflected. For example, if it's fuel at the pump price, that's a big challenge. Another issue which was also raised was the issue of the commodity prices and how we can be able to use our own products to be able to industrialize, maybe to produce, for example, soap. He gave an example of soap. We are using palm oil, but we can also use sunflower and castor oil, which is a good thing. But maybe these are issues which we are also going to discuss. There are those contradictions, because one issue he also raised was about the environment, the challenges Uganda is facing. The environment, then irrigation, rain-fed. But when you look at the budget, maybe when we look at it later, you know, you see there's nothing to do with castor oil. I don't see it, although in the PDM, there is something to do with oil seeds, but it's palm oil. But then we are talking about palm oil giving away kalangala, cutting the fruit, and we are talking about the you know, environment. You know, so there are contradictions there, but there are also contradiction in terms of where we are putting the money.
All right.
Okay, so maybe those are issues which we can...
Those are issues that hopefully we will come
discuss,
to in the course of this discussion. Dear viewer, would also like to know from you your views on the president's, you know, address. Did he tackle the issues you were hoping to hear the president talk about? And did government give interventions that you believe will help with whatever is going on in the economy? Dr. Muhumuza?
I think quite an interesting situation or difficult time that we are in. And many people say, well, I'm not an economist, but economics is out of study of people's behavior. So everybody is actually an economist in the decision that they make. Beginning of economics mostly in our country is senior 5. And they will tell you economics is about mainly 3 things. You have scarce resources, you must make a choice, and those choices will include opportunity cost. Because whenever you choose this, you've not taken the other one. Anybody who has been doing that in their life is basically an economist. And you're at this point in time where Ugandans are making those decisions. Should I walk to town? Should I ride on a border? Should I go by taxi? Now you look at the 5,000 that you have, and that is all. So if you go by taxi, 3,000 will go in the taxi, and then you have 2,000 left. Is it enough for the many other things you want to do? Now, and people are really hard up at the bottom of the pyramid, because 5,000 is a lot of money and runs a family for some people. So if any price goes up and your 5,000 has not gone up, you are poorer than you were before. And that's the conversation that people are not really bringing into the picture. That what inflation does, it erodes the power of your money. So it's like somebody has walked off with a portion of your money. Everybody who is driving now would know that 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 10,000 will give you 3 liters or thereabout. To the 10,000 can't give you 2 liters. So it's like somebody actually snatched your money and took it away. Now you have a decision to make. And that's where people are. In that kind of situation, people possibly expected the president to pull out some solutions. And I've heard those proposals, and everybody has a liberty to make a proposal. Can we reduce taxes? Can we give some subsidy where? How do you go about it? And it's really a difficult situation, but we always say it's always not wise to make a decision when you are under pressure. Chances are you're going to make the wrong decision. So you want to take a position and halt. This is what the president was telling us when COVID came. Stop and watch. Let's first learn more. Now as we go to learn more, we are able to overcome COVID because more information came in and we were able to go around it. So people would have expected, I don't know the president to tell them what. I have no idea what everybody expected. Because as we know from economics, even if you give a subsidy, a reduction, you're only sometimes really speaking to the gallery. It won't pass down to the people you wanted it to serve. Majority of the Ugandans buying soap walk to that place where the soap is. So the fuel cost may not make that much of a difference to them, even if you do the subsidy. It's not about to substantively bring the cost of the bar of soap by 1,000 so that they can all who buy that bar share in the 1,000 reduction. Because remember, the poor don't buy a bar of soap. they buy those slices. So the bar of soap is split into 8 pieces. So whatever intervention you do, if it reduces the bar of soap by 1,000, you want to distribute the 1,000 among the 8, including the shopkeeper himself will come the 9th. So you're like, okay, how much have I reduced for them? 100 shillings? Is that going to make a difference to anybody, or are you just playing to the gallery? So that's why you see that the tools you have in your toolbox are not adequate to address the problem. In moments like this, the easiest thing you do is you do a direct injection. Many of us have gone to hospitals for treatment. Doctors can say you swallow tablets, oral. They are going to take time to reach where the problem is. They can give you an injection in your muscles. It might also take time to reach the problem. Sometimes they actually have to do direct injection to get the impact, a cannula, straight into the veins or whatever it is, the blood streams. Now here, the immediate thing which would work best and you're targeting is a cash transfer. Send money directly to the poor. They receive it on their mobile phones. They now go and afford the soap, buy the sugar, buy the cooking oil. But also let's remember, for the poor, it's not even about the cooking oil. Do I even have the food to fry? So people will see cooking oil go up. Me and you in the urban areas will complain. The poor man is saying, where is posho and beans? We boil, even dodo. Where are those items we boil and eat? When they get posho, it's not to cook sauce. It's to make porridge. And this is the bulk of the people down there whom we are thinking about. So some of these interventions may not even address their need, because for them they have been into subsistence living for ages. The only thing they need is, can I get that money so that when my child falls sick, I can jump on a border to take the child to hospital, because the border has added 1,000 shillings. They are not even speaking to your cooking oil and soap. So understanding the economic dynamics would give you an ability to respond. But as I've said, unfortunately, we do not have sufficient information or even the means. You saw the Nabanja experiment. Now, we should have learned from there and improved that. From the time COVID came 2 years ago, if we had refined to say where are the vulnerable, if they have a problem, how do we help them? By now, this would have found us with the means to help. But in Uganda, we respond to a crisis. Once the crisis passes, we are back to normal. And I think that is where the problem is.
Okay. Dr. Bariga Yomwe, your views, and I think this will be my only attempt at your name. From this point on, we will go with Dr. Rogers.
Thank you. It was a good attempt, Gabriel. Gabriel, the president, coined towards oku yesonyiwa n'okukekereza. So I want to basically divide the two kind of people. Many of the people I represent as in Labour Party is Babi Sonyiwada. And because as we know, in the 3 factors of production are mainly labor, capital, and land. But the people who are giving labor, it's as if this economy, they've let go of many things. Because, for example, the president was always arguing that we cannot have a minimum wage here in Uganda. It would scare away basically investors. But we saw just across Tanzania and Kenya increased by about 15%, Tanzania 23%. These are similar economies in East Africa, and they've done it. And it is a shame that workers were waiting to see that the president would say something to them, something which would trickle down. The people he was talking about, those are now the people who are Sonyiwa. But now the kukekereza people who he should be talking
to tighten belts.
Is. And I'm surprised because today many of them bypassed me. These people who are moving in convoys, they right now you find, I don't know if they are copying the president, you find about 4 convoys. They are girlfriends in convoys, security people. So like, I'm wondering, if you say this, let's walk the talk. If you say kukekereza, and you say we leave bread, which is a good, and we go to muwogo, but people are seeing the people with convoys increase. and focus is that when we have a fuel crisis and you're talking about 4-lead cars, we would start seeing kukekereza. The president, we should demonstrate it by seeing government officials also kukekereza. But which kukekereza have you seen in the government? For example, we should be seeing a truck of muogo taking it to Nakasero State House. But anyway, I don't think people have seen a seriousness in the speech of the president, and they are waiting to see government try to walking the talk. But the people would be talking about, and in my regard, the laborers, you will find that there is not this thing. However much you say the economy is doing well, because I know the president is good at figures, and today I want to divert from figures, because as the economy will continue maybe to do well, the trickle down is not going to be seen, and instead the lowest person on the pyramid, like Dr. Mhumuza said, is going to have more effect, and they are feeling the pitch. This week I've been going to the banks, and you see no activities in our banks, no basically economic activity elsewhere, because the pinch is beginning to bite everyone. And I think we need, as a nation, more serious solutions.
All right. We will, each have an opportunity to talk about some of those more serious solutions. But if I could take you to, at least what has been, what this, situation has been attributed to. COVID-19 as one major shock, global. And that was used as a reason for many things going outside of the plans that government had. As the situation on COVID-19 was, being figured out, then came Ukraine and Russia. And yes, the president did begin his speech by mentioning a couple of things that we had survived. And he decided to go as far as, if I could just consult my paper over here, he started with the locusts, and then he went to, he started with the locusts, he went to the rising water levels, the landslides, floating islands, army worm, COVID-19. He generally went back the way he usually does. At least this time he didn't go as far as 1986. But talking about, causes. Many times they will say, if you do not get the cause, or if you don't diagnose the problem correctly, you cannot come to the correct solution. And let me start with you, Dr. Rogers, on the causes. In your view, are we getting that right?
I think there was the causes. Let me talk about, for example, COVID-19. And he wanted to score like his success, because many people have said he was scientifically diagnosed the issues of COVID-19. But in my opinion, even COVID-19, if we were to start with COVID-19, for example, his figures he gave were that Uganda had about 100,000 people infected with COVID-19. Yet we know that is scientifically wrong. About a third of the population was infected with COVID-19. I always challenge that. Where is the science? It is just that even in COVID-19, we failed to get the real causes. But also, what was said in COVID-19? What were the interventions of government? Some of the interventions were vaccination, and we saw a lot of money being sent and released by government, and some of it is a cause of the audit query in Parliament. We saw the issue of Musenyoro. Some of the things which the president said would be done in the COVID area, most of the things were not done, were not tackled. And it's as if increasingly the president is taking the Ugandans for granted because of lack of accountability. In this case, he would have taken us back to COVID and we said we'll have these interventions, and these kind of interventions have been addressed. But we all know that half of the interventions in COVID-19 were not addressed. So when he talks about the cause of the Russia war, for example, in Russia he mainly brought up the wheat issue, but and he downplayed the fuel, which for me I think is the biggest issue about the war. I take diesel. Diesel is about 6,000. All fuel prices have gone high.
For the first time in a long time, diesel at the petrol stations is more expensive than petrol.
Yes, but if you study the diesel issue caused by the war of Russia, partly, I agree with the president, but what has, he downplayed it and wanted to bring up the issue of wheat more. But to me, the fuel crisis is a very big cause. But look at our neighbors in Rwanda. I was talking with a team which is visiting from Rwanda, and they told me that surely, as the Rwanda government is trying to contain the fuel prices, because they are much lower than ours in Uganda, but they try to subsidize so that the public transport hasn't changed. When
Dr. Rogers, how sustainable is that, considering that some of the examples of countries that have actually tried to do this, it doesn't seem to be going the way they want it to, and for how long will the government continue to, subsidize the price or the cost of fuel?
Actually, I was also interested in knowing how they went around with it, but this is how they did it. They didn't cut the taxes on the fuel, but what they did is subsidized the transport companies, the companies which provide like the transport, let's say UTODA, and government was giving extra support to, let's say UTODA, not to increase the public transport.
All right.
So in that case, like Doctor said here, what comes out of a pocket of a common man will not decrease significantly.
Right. And that's in relation to transportation, public transportation.
Yes.
But now the cost on the goods, the prices of the goods going up because of the cost increasing on the transportation of those goods. That intervention doesn't take care of that.
It doesn't seem, but here the biggest excitement is how you move the goods and how. So the moment everyone starts, because here there is no regulation at all, but if, for example, someone moves by a difference of, from one state to another, a difference of 2,000, it touches every part of their small saving, and that excitement moves around every sector. So in a way, there are some areas which should be regulated, and right. Here in Uganda and it's carelessness for government to say that we cannot even try to regulate, and I think that's what other economies like Rwanda have tried to do, and send a message across the economy.
You've reminded me of a restaurant I went to. The prices had gone up, and I asked why, and I was told because public transport is more expensive. But even me, I had to travel here. So, I already have less money to give you for the food. Ms. Jane Nalunga, on, the getting the problem right.
Okay, getting the problem right. And that's really, really important. It's like going to a doctor, unless they diagnose the problem, you will end up swallowing medicine and you continue getting sick. When you look at COVID, of course, battered our economy. But I think we need to go back before the COVID pandemic, that our economy was really vulnerable to shocks because of the way we are integrated in the global economy. Uganda and most of African countries are integrated in the global economy as exporters of raw material, import of finished products. You remember the raw materials, the price is always
quite low.
Quite low.
But then when you bring the imported product, the relationship between the price,
Exactly.
from what you gave the raw material for and what you're getting the finished product.
And that's
so
why we have been running a trade deficit because of that. And when you look at the challenge also is that when you export raw materials, as you know, like the president already says, you're exporting jobs. But as a country, we have failed to take even advantage of the markets for raw materials which have been provided. Uganda has negotiated so many agreements. Europe told us bring everything but arms, everything. And I remember a friend, Ambassador Irumba, saying, we told them we have spears, we don't manufacture arms, And then
we said we're going to prepare ourselves to take advantage of those
markets. Of that.
We're still preparing.
We have AGOA. We have the East African community. We are now negotiating the free trade area. But you look at, we don't have what to take there. The history of our trade has been rejections, in terms of quality, and sometimes we don't even have the quantity, Yet the markets are there. For raw products, at least we could be able to say, even coffee, the quality is good, the coffee beans. You see what happened to our maize here, in Kenya, for the European Union, we're even forced to have a self-ban, because they told us, we told you don't bring it again here. Then we said, let us have a self-ban to put our house in order. So we have a challenge when it comes to organizing our production. Today, you find the example of pineapples,
Yeah.
They grow pineapples in different sizes and shapes, and we buy them very cheaply, and you wonder what's happening at the local level, there at the household. How much is that farmer getting so that he can be able
8 pineapples at 10,000 shillings.
Exactly.
At how much did that person who sold you those pineapples get those pineapples?
And
most likely he did not get them from the farmer.
No,
he got them from somebody else.
These are the boys who are running.
So what did the farmer even get for those pineapples?
Exactly. So we have failed to organize our production. We have to organize our value addition and to organize our marketing. And I tell people that if people are going to get out of poverty, don't do production without knowing the market. Because the moment you do production and there are no markets, you make those people suffer. Because we are making those people suffer who are producing pineapples. They have put in their labor and they are getting peanuts because the market is not organized. Today, somebody will ask you, Uganda, what are you known for? What do you produce? Somebody asked me that question. I was moving from Pretoria. Somebody was driving from Pretoria to Joburg. Said, those Boers, they will say, I have never been to Africa, meaning that they have never been
outside South Africa.
Exactly. So I said, you are from, where are you from? Said, Uganda. Okay. I have never been to Africa. Where is that? I told him. Said, so what do you produce? I said, okay, we do coffee. I said, which coffee? I have seen Ethiopian coffee. He said, we also do maize. We also do cotton. And until I said, you know what? We changed the conversation. So we need to be able to be known for something. Today, when you look at the Ukraine war, it's okay to say fuel has gone up, it's understandable. But if you say we are waiting for soya bean, for sunflower, yet we can grow sunflower in 4 months. And I tell you, Gabriel, if you give people a market, people will produce.
All right.
People will produce. Let me just give you an example of moringa. Some people came and told people, moringa, has market.
I remember that
people
period.
went, and bought moringa. They told them that, silkworms, women will fear caterpillars, but people went and started, you know. So people can, as long as there is a market.
Remember the craze for vanilla as well.
Vanilla, you know, and vanilla, you know, it is supposed to be done by hand, like you are removing a jigger. You know, some people have never seen a jigger being removed. That's how it's done. But people do it because they know there is money. So if we are talking about getting out of these problems, growing our economy, we need to really think, you know, strategically, think across the value chain, but think from the market. But also put policies and institutions, strengthen them so that we can be able to strengthen that entire value chain.
All right. Dr. Muhumuza, I will let you respond to that same question, but before you do, a couple of months ago, when you know the war between Ukraine and Russia began, government said, you know, yes, there's going to be an issue with some of these things, wheat and what have you, but we can produce locally. That was a couple of months ago. A few days ago, we hear the president saying we can produce locally. Since you do deal with these people, did we start producing at that time? Because if you need 4 months to plant something, it means you start immediately. But if 4 months later, well, yes, are we almost harvesting?
Yeah, I think you're right, and it is sad Ugandans make statements that they again ignore. And sadly, these statements are made by government officials. Uganda has good policies, but never implements. Now that has an implication. Two implications to begin with. For you to have a policy, which is a document, and then you don't implement, that means you're not going to have results because you never implemented the policy. And that's why we find ourselves in this situation. Secondly, how do you conclude that that was a good policy if you never even implemented it?
Exactly.
But this is your civil service. They are comfortable to make those reckless statements and then wait for Russia and Ukraine to blame them. You never implemented anything. So your population is exposed to all vulnerabilities, ranging from rising seawater, the floods, the swamps, the islands, the locusts, because you never implemented anything. So what do you expect? Why do you expect the result? You can't be God to reap where you did not sow. So we're not surprised that we are where we are. Are we going to present sunflower? Sunflower, simsim, soybean have been in northern Uganda for ages. And we even came up with a vegetable oil project. Borrowed money, truly increase the oil seed projects. So we would be taking advantage of saying, oh, you mean the price of cooking oil has gone up? Oh, good, our farmers are going to benefit.
Exactly.
Because we would have invested. But we borrowed all this money. You have no idea what the project did, where the money went. Now here we are blaming Russia and Ukraine when we should actually be celebrating them.
Exactly.
COVID came, and COVID took advantage of those who had not prepared themselves, including our friends in the developed world. They actually now realized they were not prepared. Here we were with our health system, taking nice pictures of health centers as the politicians were flagging them off. There was no PPE, and the people who worked on advising the president to really lock us down even before we got any COVID case told me one of the key driving factors was that lack of PPEs. They said COVID is not yet here, but the day it lands, our health system will expose the health workers. Let's lock down and look for money to prepare. And indeed, when it came, it found us locked down already, and we were prepared. We lost a number of health workers. It could have been worse. Now, if you have not prepared, don't celebrate. Go back and say, why are the consequences? So we didn't invest, and I'm not surprised. We're going to continue talking about local production, and we're not going to do anything about it. And the Ukraine war is going to continue. It's not about to end. This was not a tent fight that it is Muhammad Ali versus Squat, and on the 10th round, they will stop.
It ends.
No.
There will be a knockout.
And if there's no knockout, the judges say.
The judges will decide the 10th round you stop. Football, whether you have scored or not, we stop. We're going to penalty because it has to end.
Penalties, we get a winner.
We can't play for 2 weeks. This war is going to continue. And you can tell by the interest of the Western countries. In 2 months, America has committed $54 billion to support Ukraine. You have over 1 million people displaced. Russia is still just saying, by the way, Mariupol is the first one I'm now going for. We don't know how far they want to end. So it's an unfolding event. So, and it's not just tackling wheat and soybean, it's also tackling fertilizers. These are the 2 biggest producers of fertilizers. Now in Uganda, we don't use fertilizers, but those who use them will begin to look for food where we too go to look for food. So those messages, what have we been telling ourselves? Now the reality has come home. As they say, is it what birds have come home to roost? We are reaping what we sowed, which was nothing. You are getting into another situation of how do we get out of this? And we are watching the space. That is going to haunt us because we have lied to ourselves that we are investing. We have lied to ourselves that we are building resilience. We have lied to ourselves that the economy is going to get better. Now we are being tested by things that are not going to go away. The second information, or piece of information coming out of this, we've been telling ourselves we have factories, we have industries. Which industries are really finishing finalization? And we tell ourselves we need to add value addition to our products. Even the factories we have, now we realize they import the raw material. They are not using the Ugandan raw material, including basic things like soybean to make soap, sunflower to make cooking oil. But you see it made in Uganda. If it's not originating from the Lango sub-region and the Kabarole sub-region, you have a problem. You jump on, as she said, moringa comes. What is moringa? If it's not in the trend of touching very many households, and you're only benefiting because Mauritius had a problem, don't go there. We're even here celebrating. Our coffee last year was the biggest revenue we realized from coffee. We've been growing coffee for years. But last year has 2 issues. One, we took advantage of the rising cost of logistics, of moving a container because of COVID lockdowns. The Italians buy a lot of their coffee from India. But it became very expensive to move containers from India to Italy. So as soon as they will go through the Gulf of Aden, they said, but there is coffee in Mombasa. Why go all the way across the Indian Ocean when there is coffee here? So they bought a lot of our coffee. Now, if things normalize, they might go back to their markets. And we also lose out. We need
because of standard issues. And
we need to consolidate that Italian market. Now is the time to have a conversation with those Italians to say, how did you find our coffee? What can we do to improve? So that we capture that market. But that even said, as we are celebrating, we got about $600 million. That is support to our 1 month of imports in this country. The sad part of it is, what are we importing? Raw materials to factories who have invested so heavily in industrial parks to do value addition of Ugandan products which are not there. This is a question to do self-reflection. So even as the president said, let's persist, let's tighten our belts, let's do what? I think we need to go back and say, what has the public sector been doing to support the private sector? What has the private sector been doing to manage the situation? I think there are bigger issues really, and the earlier we start on them, the better. Because as we've said, these are long-term things. They are not going to ease out in the next 2 years or 1 year. China is still locking up. The cost of moving a container across the globe is still rising. As somebody said, if we think we are done with COVID, COVID is not yet done with us. It's still here. The implications are going to continue. And I don't want us to wake up and say, where did we go? So if anybody thinks prices are going to go down, they are not going to go down. The only question we should be asking, when are prices going to stop rising? But as for going down, forget that you are going to see a little fuel below 5,000 in the next possibly 2 years or even more. So this is the new normal. We need our incomes to go up to restore even the basic way of living. How do we increase people's incomes? Not through a salary enhancement. Because salary enhancement in Uganda is basically not going to come out of URA's increased collection. You cannot pay to borrow to pay salaries. That's not sustainable. It's like another conversation, because once salaries go up, they don't come down. So if they are going up through borrowing, how are you going to manage them? So I think this is the time to really think hard. As they say, never lose an opportunity of a crisis. Because a crisis allows you to check everything that possibly was not right
All right.
in your system.
You do mention, putting money in people's hands, because if they have money to spend, then definitely, it's going to help the economy in many ways. But earlier on, you talked about something that was tried during, I believe it was the second lockdown.
Yeah.
First one, they tried to do
Actual
giving
food
food,
delivery.
and we saw all the problems with that. And then there came the Nabanja money,
Yes.
where now we are giving money, we're putting money in the hands of people. Let them go and buy what they actually need for their households. Did we get that right? And is that something that we can move forward with? Because we have to start somewhere with putting money in the hands of Ugandans. And let me begin with you, Dr. Rogers, on that one.
On that one, of course, like Doctor said, we have very good policies, but implementation. But as a nation, we should face the fact that we are facing the biggest problem, which is moral decadence. Our morals are letting us down. The moral decadence is causing a problem in that, for example, in this issue, the president says that we cannot give subsidies because he knows we don't have the technical people who can manage this exercise. So it would end up being abused by corruption. So we saw, for example, in the, what you're calling the Nabanja's handouts and everything, there was an audit and it went into, most of the money ended up with the bureaucrats, not there where it was intended to go. So whatever interventions the government is thinking about, and I want to believe with the panelists that we now need a serious conversation, that we will always go into circles. We have to address the institutions which would help government implement its policies, and as a nation, we are suffering from moral issues. And to me, it's that simple. If we don't address that, we will never implement anything, because any good plan which comes around, somehow Ugandans find their way around it. And especially the people, the technocrats, who are supposed to help government to implement it. Gabriel, I will tell you, it is as simple as that. Address our morals.
All right. And, well, Jen, your opinion on the issue of, putting money in the hands of Ugandans, and how exactly we should go about doing that.
Okay.
Because the last thing we want to do is give money to those that already have, as the ones who do not have are holding their hands out waiting, and the day never comes.
Yeah, but again, it isn't, for me, I don't think it's, I don't want to sound callous, but I don't think it would also be a good policy to give handouts. Because one, we can't sustain them. Developed countries can give out, is it a dole? Every month, those who are not working can go and pick money. We can't afford that. So even if government gives today some little money, tomorrow won't be there. So we need to, government needs to look at more sustainable way of increasing incomes at individual level and household level, but also at national level. Because sometimes you forget that also the national coffers are also empty. They need money. So we need to see sustainable way of increasing incomes, not just giving, because I give you today. You have been poor, you buy soap, you buy sugar. That's when you buy meat. You haven't eaten meat for maybe a long time.
After buying the meat, you discover you cannot just boil it. You're like, wait, so
you
where do I get money for cooking oil?
And the money disappears within one. And such money has caused problems, by the way, in families. So we need to look at a more sustainable way of of increasing incomes, and maybe that's what we need to talk about.
I'm actually going to come to you about the sustainable ways of increasing income, but let me get Dr. Muhumuza's quick comment on doing these cash transfers, because we need to go for a break like in the next 45 seconds.
The cash transfers, of course, they do work, and as we said, you give the money, especially when you target the bottom of the pyramid. We always know in economics they have a high propensity to consume. Give them 100,000, they are going to spend all of it. Now that triggers a multiplier effect, because they are buying from this shop, that shop is paying rent, that person goes and pays school fees, so it multiplies so fast around there, compared to if you gave it to Muhumuza, who has a bank loan. I will immediately go and settle my bank loan, and that's it. Or if you give it to a richer person, he will import, so you have a leakage. I will replace my phone that got blank, and you lose it. So that's the way you want to say, where do I target so that I can get the best ripple effects, but also direct impact on the people who really need this intervention.
All right. We need to take a break at this point, but the debate definitely continues after the break. We also will look at some of your comments, so please continue using our hashtag CTV Big Debate. Please stay tuned, because after this, we continue the debate.
Uganda has a budding film industry that will be celebrated at the Uganda Film Festival 2022. There'll be workshops, film screenings, and a world-class gala. Vote for your viewer's choice movie through the online voting platform that will be part of the drive, as we use the creative sector as a solution to unemployment. The Uganda Film Festival is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
CTV, don't blink.
Yes, it's true! And Sheko Comedy in Rinyashtara is happening at Indera Center on Friday, 27th May 2022 at exactly 7 p.m. Tickets are now available at Indera Center at only 20,000, and if you want a table of 5 at 300,000. This comes with a silver platter of nyama choma and nyam 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 nyam. Make it a point to be there, and tickets are now available at Indera Center. Come, let's laugh together. English stops at the gate.
CTV is now on StarTime. You can now catch all your favorite programs, our daily comprehensive news bulletins, and so much more on StarTime's channel number 248. Stay tuned for a world of endless possibilities. CTV, don't blink. As we embark on a journey to realize our full potential, we all need expanded minds and limitless possibilities. We need to be accurately informed. CTV is your growth partner. With reliable, in-depth news, we tell the story from all perspectives. We bring you the story in real time. Catch our comprehensive daily bulletins in Juba Egorovie at 7 p.m. and PM edition at 9 p.m. CTV, don't blink.
Welcome back from the break. Thank you for staying with us here on the Big Debate. I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel. Glad that we have your company this evening as we look at the state of the Ugandan economy. This follows, an address by the president, but also the fact that Parliament did pass a budget higher than the previous budget. This budget is for the year 2022-2023. And one of the ministers of finance says it is in this new financial year that starts on the 1st of July that the economy of Uganda will start to recover. Well, do you believe the minister? And with the interventions that government is putting in place, do you believe they're going to solve the economic problems we have at the moment? We have 4 guests. Dr. Rogers Birigayomwe, he is a scholar and a researcher. Dr. Fred Muhumuza, an economist, also a researcher, and Ms. Jane Nalunga, Executive Director of Siatini, Uganda. In the first segment of the show, we did focus on the President's address and whether it did touch on, the correct things, people's reactions to that address, and we did leave off when we're talking about, then how do you increase incomes, especially household incomes, and how do you focus at the bottom of the pyramid? Because Dr. Muhumuza left off by saying if you put money there, those people are going to spend that money, and it's going to have an effect. It's going to have a ripple effect on the money circulating in the economy. Dr. Muhumuza, I'd like to come back to you and very quickly on how do we increase those incomes? The president has spoken previously about, how to increase those incomes. I hope it hasn't been the same case of after the president's speech, that's it. Then nothing is done.
You see, the challenge we're having as a country is, fine, as we said, everybody is an economist in their decision making. But there are some certain technical things why people go to school to study economics. Each one of us can do self-medication, and we always do. But there are those who have gone to school to study the human body. It is your body, but they understand it better, and they know those interrelationships. So you tell them, I've read eyes, but the man will be looking at deeper things because he knows that's a symptom. There might be something deep-seated. Now, everybody is become wise on the economy, and they have messed up the way we plan to realize what they all would want, inclusiveness. How do you bring everybody to play in the economy? Now, the poor people, what do they have to offer? As we talked about, their biggest tool is labor, and possibly their land if they still have it. Now, they can offer that labor and sell it as it is to me and you because we have opened up a big farm and we need more hands than we can get from our own household. They earn from that. They can also use their land and labor to produce the maize, and we keep talking about value addition. We've given people through NADS the inputs. Now they are going to be able to sell. Government went and borrowed money under the CAIP project, community access, whatever infrastructure projects. They invested a lot of silos to store the food is coming because NADS has come up, and then value addition, people put up factories to process. Now you would expect the poor would join. Now the evidence is coming through. We are importing rice, we're importing soya bean. Really now the poor are not connected to the economy. Their only linkage is to buy the cooking oil that is coming from Ukraine and Malaysia. Yet they should have been selling their soya bean, their simsim, their sunflower to be part of that growth process. So you begin to say, have we analyzed some of these assumptions that we had to make sure the people are included? The only way you put money sustainably in people's hands is to let them be part of that production process. The transfers are only temporary to ease a pain like this one, or to kickstart, as they say in the Kanjake. But once you have started, I want to take my battery back to my car. But you must have had an engine and wheels and gears you engage to move on your own. But if people do not have that, you can't keep injecting money in circles for 20 years, same households, and they are not taking off. You need to come back and check what could be the problem. Are they in an engagement that is not productive or is not giving them enough thrust for the minister's plane to take off? Because you also need a minimum speed to take off. That plane can continue on the runway and never take off. And the runway will end, you know what will happen. Yeah. One of the things I fear most when I'm in an airplane, I'm like, when is this thing going up? Is the runway about to end? Was it long enough? You know, you have those kinds of things. So you want to say, am I giving them enough thrust to eventually take off? And will they take off and sustain? So we have seen some of them actually try. 1 goat, 2 goats, they become 6, they become 8. Now they are like taking off. Then a child falls sick.
Right.
And the health system does not work. So they have to sell off all these goats,
yes,
to go and treat the child.
Yeah.
Then a child has to sit exams at a university or at a college. And it's very expensive these days. So the economy is integrated, and the things binding these people are not just through circle money. If circle money is coming at the expense of a health facility, you are literally moving in circles.
Yeah.
This guy is not going to take off.
I remember reading a World Bank, report on, the number of Ugandans that had been lifted out of poverty. But there was a, there was a caveat there, basically stating that, if the rains did not come at the correct time, many of these people were going to slip back into poverty.
And in the analysis of poverty, there are things that people never consider, maybe sometimes for political reasons. Sometimes we say how many people are above the poverty line, but are just sitting.
Yeah.
They are just an incidence away. They are above that $1, and now we have increased it to $1.70. But if a child falls sick,
yeah.
or the rains don't come,
the rains delay,
these fellows are going to collapse back into the system. So resilience means you must be higher above the poverty line, that even if you're shaken and you slide downwards, you will be comfortable. Now some of them we design what we call safety nets. Literally a net to say, while you fall off the tree, you will not crash land on the ground. We have a means of holding you back and put you back on your journey. Then the other analysis is those below the poverty line. How deep are they? If the poverty line like now is $1 a day, which is 3,600 shillings, is this person sitting at 3,400, which is just 200 shillings below the line? Or is he at 1,700, which is so far away? Now you come down and analyze the income levels of Ugandans. And the statistics we have, on average, Ugandans in the formal sector, some of them will be around 210,000 shillings per month. This is the breadwinner. He has 210,000 shillings now. When you divide that by 30, this man is earning 7,000 shillings a day. You divide that by the number of household people that he has, who might be 5 to 7. Each one of them is getting 1,000 shillings a day. Remember, your poverty line is 3,600.
Yeah.
So your human beings are literally 1,000 shillings so far away from the poverty line.
Right.
So you have a bigger task to move them from 1,000 to 2 to 3 to 3,600. And remember, you want them to be at 5,000. So even if anything happens, and this is why people who say, how do we determine what should be the sufficient income holdings? If it is 5,000 or $2 a day, that's already about 7,000 times the 30 days times the number of people in the household, because the dependency must not be lost out.
Right.
Don't say, but Gabriel is getting $1 million. He's okay. Gabriel has dependents. If the state had helped him to lift off some of these dependents, that schools work, UP is working, US is working, all he buys is exercise books, that would be okay. Now, sometimes we make assumptions by really not analyzing. I was reading Ministry of Education. Why are children dropping out? Immediate conclusion, food.
Food.
They have no food to eat. Okay, solution. Parents should bring
Parents
real
should bring
food to the school.
Yeah.
Now, government can help out how it will be cooked. You are assuming the children didn't come with the food from home. They left it there. What if it is not there and that's the reason they came without food? But are you sure they are not dropping out because the teachers are not coming? Because we also have teacher absenteeism.
Right.
Maybe the teachers are not as good for the children to get convinced. Or maybe there is another burning issue. The children have to guard the rice. It's family labor. Because if they are not there, the birds are going to finish the rice. So there are many dynamics there, but you make one conclusion from your sector. It is food, let people bring. I mean, very simplistic decision making. And that drives an entire government budget, which, as we've said, is not going to speak the real fundamentals that are causing this lack of resilience.
All right.
So we have very weak analysis, and we need to revisit some of those issues.
Dr. Muhumuza, you're so kind. This salary of 275,000, you did not remove the payee because it's at the threshold.
Those are below the threshold.
Isn't it 235?
It's 235, so we say 210.
Yeah.
They are below the threshold. But remember, majority are 90,000 to 11,000. So
Yeah.
they are even far
Far below.
down.
All right.
That's the population we have.
Dr. Rogers, on this whole issue of how do we then put, finances in the hands of the people? How do we help the households have this income?
Yeah, as a Labour Party, what we are saying, we have to revisit the cooperatives. Cooperatives were institutions which would strengthen the institutions would go to the lowest level. The cooperatives went to the villages, they went to the parishes, and if they were let to operate, they would have their own system. They would strengthen their systems over time. But what government is continuously doing is to do handouts. Like you see the Myoga, parish level, and all these Myogas don't have institutions strong enough as the cooperatives used to have. And I wonder, we went back, convinced, let's say, the Indian investors to come back to Uganda, but no one is having a discussion of having our cooperatives back. Institutions like cooperatives were a solution to this kind of, right now in this situation we are in, the production, you would find cooperatives down, and they would have built their power, their resilience down, and people, they used to do it in a way independent from government. But because it is sort of, I think, a political tool, that every subsistence should come from government. So in my advice to government, and in the conversation we should have as a nation, is why don't we revive the cooperatives? Because the laborers down there had their own way of coming up. We've seen the ones which have, like the one in Bugisu, it is still useful to to the peasants down there. And these cooperatives are economical. They are made in a way that they can flow in the times of the prices being frustrated. They would still give their members some a good price. But right now, they talked about pineapples. The prices of pineapples coming to, even you would wonder what a farmer gets, is an issue which would have been addressed by cooperatives. So we have to revisit the cooperatives if we have to basically empower the common man down there.
All right. Being from the Labour Party, it's understandable that the first thing you would think, cooperatives. Yes, Madam Jane Nalunga.
Okay, increasing incomes at household and also at national level. Given the fact that 70% of our people are in agriculture, it's a moving target. Sometimes maybe that's the data we are talking about. Sometimes they say 76, sometimes 72, but agriculture is our mainstay. And I think that's where we need to start from. But like I said, starting from the market, whether it's a domestic market, whether it's a global market, whether it's a regional market, we need to be clear. What does the market want in terms of quality, in terms of quantity? Then we harness production. I want to give you an example of Mauritius. I have been to Mauritius. They started their economy on sugar, because that time the European Union used to give quotas. They would say quotas to their colonies, former colonies. So they would say, Mauritius, we give you so many, so many tons. They gave us as Uganda a sugar quota, by the way, 5,000 tons of sugar per year. And that they used to give a price above the world market. But they could tell you, don't buy from the world market. We want you to grow, process, do sugar, then bring it, because we want to create employment. Mauritius was given, I think, 48,000 tons It's a small island. You could go to Mauritius, literally, even the roads would have sugar canes. You would think it's like elephant grass. So they grew sugar cane, and they were able to achieve their quota over a period of time. Uganda, we didn't send a single grain of sugar. We didn't use our sugar quota. And I understand it was given to Mauritius. I don't know whether it's true, but we didn't. Mauritius, from there, they continued into textile. They don't grow textile, they get yarn. And I remember when we got AGOA, to the AGOA quota to send textile to US, they came here to say, you know what, you grow the cotton, make yarn, give it to us, we can make t-shirts and very nice clothes and send to use your...
This is Mauritius.
Mauritius.
And we're happy to do so.
No, we said no. We opted for the Kananasan, you know. You remember AGOA, you know.
Yes.
Yet the other one was the better option because we would be growing our cotton, doing yarn, and selling the yarn, you know. But here we opted for just adding, you know, make a shirt, you know, things are coming, add, you know, remember the AGOA girls. What I'm trying to say today, Mauritius has gone into services finance. In fact, it's a tax haven. That's why Mauritius has even a double taxation agreement with Uganda. And there are so many companies here which are domiciled in Mauritius because the tax is very almost not there. But that's their route, finance, financial services. You know, so what I'm trying to say, Uganda, we need a development path where what are we known for? What can we do? What can we supply in the global market? Dr. Muhumuza talked about the coffee issue, that because of those challenges of coffee to Italy, we are able to get that market. But how do we secure that market, you know? Today, there is what we call product agreements. You sit with a country. Italy, you want our coffee. How many tons are you going to take? What quality? And you make that agreement. And then you work backwards. You put UNBS, the standards, the storage, because the market is clear. And in that way, you can be able to give this farmer a fair price, a fair and sustainable price. Today, people are not producing in the villages because the maize price today, you don't know whether it's going to be 700 or 2,000 or 3,000. One season, it's 200 or 100. The young people sell the land, they buy border and leave. But if there is sustainability and that predictability, people can be able to produce and get out of poverty. So what I'm saying really, there is a lot of planning which we need to do. We need to scan the environment. Today, we are negotiating the Continental Free Trade Area. Busy negotiating. But you ask the private sector, do you know the Continental Free Trade Area? What are you going to sell in that market? They don't know. But we are negotiating.
We'll negotiate, we'll finish, then we'll come and tell people now, prepare to send this.
Which isn't right, because they won't know what to send. You know, so we have been negotiating all these markets, but there is that lack of linkage between what we negotiate and what we are producing. There is also a contradiction, what we are producing, where we are going to sell it, we don't know. The last time I was here, I was talking about Teju, the Soroti fruit factory. You go on Uganda Airlines, it isn't there. You take juice from Kenya and from Tanzania, and you ask, why isn't Teju here? Because that's a market. And I
took a picture of a certain product on Uganda Airlines, and before posting it, I said no, but
I did.
is this good for the country?
I did. I
said, let me keep this
posted it.
information to myself.
No, I took the pictures, I posted it.
Actually,
and I didn't take
two products
I didn't
that had
take
made
that
in
juice.
different
Yes.
countries.
Yes, I didn't take that juice. I said no. No, I can't. But it's that lack of planning. That's already market, our own market. And the idea is right. Put a factory there. Let the farmers supply the oranges, then put them on the market. But we are not doing that, So it's that lack of coordination, that lack of planning. I can give you an example of sesame, sim. Sim, when you look at the market out there in China, it's there. You look at castor oil, it's there. The market is there. But our government officials will say, oh, the markets are there, let us produce. But we haven't secured that market. We need to secure the market, and then we talk about the institutions. Oh. We talk about the policies. What kind of policies should be in place to enable us to put that product in that market and to sustain our stay in that market? Because you can send one consignment and that's the end of it.
And it has happened before.
It has
happened. We go and negotiate. We send for 1 or 2 months, and then we tell them, okay, first hold on as we prepare to send you more. And what do you expect them to do? Shut down and wait for you to send more products?
Of course, the point is they do risk analysis, and as we always say, the chain is as strong as the weakest link.
As its weakest link. Yes.
Now, the moment these people identify a weak link, they will not even allow you to be part of their supply value chain. They will knock you out before you even join it. So they are going to come and assess, we need so many tonnage. And that's why some of the hotels in this town and factories are importing raw materials. Because as she's saying,
even restaurants.
Exactly. I set up a factory. I want to crush so much sugarcane per day. Sugarcane matures in 18 months. So today is the 25th of May. I need to be guaranteed where the sugarcane for 8th December going to come from. The sugar for 25th of February next year, where is it going to come from? That's why they do contract farming. Because I want to know your sugarcane is at 9 months, I will buy it. 11 months and 20 days, I will buy it. Now, when the sugarcane people came up, we said, you want to make contracts with the farmers and you cheat them. There should not be contract farming, there should not be zoning. Now, that's exposing the manufacturer to risks. And when he looks at this uncertainty, it's like, no, now that is the government policy, no zoning, no contract farming, let me go and grow my own. So 80% of these big factories are processing their own. And thank God those are in Uganda. The others are saying, I will get my raw material from abroad. Because they want that kind of certainty.
All right.
So our policies themselves have undermined our inclusiveness of the poor farmers because we have excluded them from the berry manufacturing sector. And you are here talking agro-industrialization. Your agriculture cannot link to your industry because of uncertainty.
All right. This is how the president concluded his speech. In conclusion, I repeat that the only really serious dangers to our future are reliance on only rain-fed agriculture, damage to our environment, and a nuclear war among mistake makers. That's the way the president decided to conclude the matter. Well, I want us to close on this issue. Dr. Rogers, how would you conclude the matter?
Yeah, like, for example, if I take up the issue of the environment, the president is right to say the environment, damage on the environment, but if we go to see, we have many policies on the environment, but who is supervising the abuse of the environment? It's government itself and the government officials. So it's not hidden that in Uganda, the biggest endangering to the environment are government officials who are supposed to be supervising the same environment.
How do you come to that conclusion? I think you lost me somewhere there.
It's for example, there are wetlands here in Kampala, and you see them being built in. We see like supermarkets, all other buildings, and in wetlands, there is no policy, for example, whereby a tree to be cut, you have to replace it, and it's well known that we are losing many of our species. So the environment, and at one time, actually, I think sometimes a president mocks some of our leaders, even in the opposition. He made one of our strong woman, Mama Mavira, to supervise the environment, but she has failed because it shows that it is a degeneration of many years. So the environmental degradation is really an issue government has failed to implement, and I doubt if this government...
So the president is correct in saying this is one of our big issues.
Yes, but this is one issue also which will never be solved by this government. So it's an issue, but there is no solution for it.
All right. Okay. Dr. Muhumuza, he has spoken about the environment, and one of the questions I've wanted to ask an economist or, a planner for the country is there a special relationship between industries, factories, and wetlands? Because it seems like they thrive better in wetlands, because that's where we seem to be putting all of them. Go across the country and just see what we're putting in the wetlands. Factories, industries, our industrial parks, wetlands. Yes. I think factories do well in wetlands.
They actually shouldn't, and I don't think they do. You need to know the cost of stabilizing a wetland. Yeah. Anybody would not want to dare a wetland. But because government has become irrational, it says, I will give you a prepared industrial park. So it incurs a big cost stabilizing a wetland to bring in these fellows. If it was wise, it would be buying land in areas that are not wetlands. They are easier to develop. But for some reason, we do not put valuation of the environment in economic analysis. If we did, we would realize that it is better to leave Mavira untouched than grow sugarcane there. And that conversation came at that time. Now we have Bugoma Forest in the neighborhood of where I come from. People are cutting it seriously to grow sugarcane. I'm like, for the worth of these trees, I would rather import sugar. Grow soybean elsewhere, grow coffee, and make money, import sugar, than destroy this environment. The Japanese, actually, in building the infrastructure, they would rather drill through a mountain than even cut to open it to put a road there. So you find they have a lot of tunnels in the countryside. They don't want to touch the environment because they know what it means. If we only knew what that means, we would be okay. But that takes us to the other president's conclusion, that our rain-fed agriculture. What is the problem? Uganda is one of the best countries in the world where seasons come, they go, they are predictable. Yeah. And it's raining heavily, you complain of floods. You have not planted. Now you come back to say, you see the rain? But when the rain fell, you never planted. Because of the things you say, we have good policies, we never implement. And then we say we want to plant the whole year round. Ukraine and Russia are in winter for more than half of the year. The 4 months they get for planting, they use it maximally. Uganda will have 2 seasons. Even if you use them recklessly, but at least you use them. You will still have silos and you'll be feeding the East African region. We are importing rice, cooking oil. I mean, what are we not importing? So the problem is not necessarily the environment and nature that God has given to us. It is us. Okay. And we need to revisit that.
Madam Jane, how would you conclude this matter? Because now we'd like to very quickly go and just look at the budget, and we're going to look at it very briefly, really.
On the issue of, I agree with my previous speakers, and I think those are the contradictions we see in the president's speech. You know, you talk about reliance on rain agriculture, yet maybe we talk about that in the budget, but you are destroying the environment. You know, somebody was telling me in Masaka has really become very dry. They were telling me that it was because their rain used to come from the islands. But we have destroyed the islands to grow palm oil. But now they are telling us the palm oil is not enough. We give them more land to grow more palm oil so that we can have soap. But yet we have an alternative. We have soya bean, we have castor oil, we have sunflower. You know, it's those contradictions. When it comes to the war, you know, it has challenges, the fuel, but again, when you look at the opportunities are there. Talking about sunflower, we can grow sunflower and be able to tell Germany that, you know what, Germany, don't worry. We can be able to supply so many tons per year, you know. We can be able to supply castor oil, you know. So we should be looking at the opportunities in there, you know, so that we can balance. Fuel is going up, but we are getting income in people's pockets to be able to afford that. But when it comes to the environment, by the way, the European Union is passing a law, the green economy, that they are going to stop importing products which are produced unsustainably. Because they are talking about a green, you know, they talk about fair, green, post-COVID economic recovery, and they are serious about greening the economy. So we have to watch out, you know, what we are doing, destroying this, destroying that, and we are looking for markets.
All right. Well, I'll use that to segue to, talking about the budget. And yes, I did state earlier that Parliament passed the 48.1 trillion budget, very different from what it used to be, where, yes, the budget would be read, but the processes in Parliament would continue. But now, by the time the budget is read, it's a budget ready to be implemented. Come 1st July, we start to implement. Let's start with, sorry for bringing you to that issue, because I'm sure there's other things you'd like to touch on. But you see, we're talking about, the problem is we rely very heavily on, rain. When we look at the budget, is it responding to the problems that we have diagnosed in our, in our economy? For example, have we put money aside for the irrigation projects that we have been talking about for the last couple of, financial years? I will start with you, Ms. Nalunga.
When you look at our discussion here, our conversation, you can see that that the issues have been rotating around health, education, agriculture, industry, marketing, that's the conversation. Issues around the environment, producing sustainably. When you look at this budget, it's a program budget. So they talk about agro-industrialization. Agro-industrialization, we need to go back to figures anyway. It gives us some idea of where the money is going. It has been given 1.2 trillion. And this is agro-industrialization. We are talking about agriculture. We are talking about industry. And in here, there is also marketing in here. And
sorry for interrupting, but I think it's very important to let the viewer know that we have moved from the the sector-based budgeting to programs. So where you previously would hear that, you know, roads are receiving this amount, health is receiving this amount, you're going to start hearing things like agro-industrialization, you're going to hear human capital development, you're going to hear governance and security, and then these different sectors will fall in there.
But you see, Gabriel, when you go deeper into the budget, you know, in the program, then you go back and say Ministry of Agriculture, MAIF. Then they will say Ministry of Trade is getting so much. So for example, under agro-industrialization, they will give some little money to trade. Then they will go to private sector development and give some little money to trade. We collected all this money scattered everywhere, and Ministry of Trade got 72 billion around there. Just 72 billion, Ministry of Trade. But when you look at our discussion, we are talking about agriculture and trade. And I think agriculture from the 1.2...
That's why you want the industries, so that you have what to trade on the global market.
Exactly. You know, so there is a lot of mismatch between where we are putting our money and where we want to go, you know. So when you look at even the money which has gone to agriculture, we are talking about if we are to do production, we have to do extension, you know. People need that advice, you know. These are the chemicals you are going to use. Don't use that chemical, it was banned, you know. We need that extension service. But when you look at what has been put to agriculture, it's also laughable. Very, very little money. Even if you collect from somewhere, you put together, it's laughable. So at the end of that day, although we are talking about, you know, beyond the money, because we really need to go beyond the money, you know, we need to look at those underlying issues, how the economy is organized. Is it organized right? Are the policy frameworks right? Are they fit for purpose? Fred was saying, you know, people are saying, oh, we have the best policies. People come and copy. That isn't true, you know. That isn't true, because policies have to change according to circumstances. We need to ask, is that policy fit for purpose? You know, if you say I want to go to Kampala, what vehicle will take you there? You know, so you need to design that policy. You know, you need to review that policy. And we need also to look at institutions. If we say this is what we want to achieve, what are those key institutions? Because if we say we want to produce, increase production, productivity, add value, market, trade, you know, negotiate all these markets and trade in those markets. What are those key institutions? You talk about Ministry of Trade. You know, today I was really surprised. And I have seen this trend going on. And I was asking myself, what's happening? Today we had a very big conference on commodity prices. That's where we're.
Organized by
Bank of Uganda
and Ministry of Finance.
Ministry of Trade wasn't there. Ministry of Trade wasn't there at all. And I remember we had another summit on the economy sometime back. The Ministry of Trade wasn't there, you know, wasn't. I was looking at the ministerial policy paper for Ministry of Trade. Negotiations are not, but there is no money at all. And we are saying we need markets. Markets are negotiated. You sit, you go to Ghana, that's where the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat is, and you negotiate. I have seen this country negotiating, and our government officials are paid for by the other party. We are negotiating the economic partnership agreement. Yeah, we are negotiating the economic partnership agreement with the European Union. And the European Union, we are funding even the minister, even all the officials, because there was no money. And you know who pays the
Yeah.
piper?
Calls the tune. All right. Dr. Rogers, on the budget, because of time, I will just give it to you that broadly. Your quick views on the budget and whether it responds to the current issues we have in the economy.
The budget, with this budget, we are likely to see, especially for us workers, we are going to see more industrial action because, one, the issues of workers have been downplayed. And also, it's as if after an industrial basically action, that's when the government responds. And I think the workers have seen the sort of the language of the government. My disappointment, of course, was, sometimes budgets are in response of the current situation. My disappointment, for example, was why increase only, let's say, the salaries of scientists in such a, which I also call a pandemic. I thought that given the situation, yes, the scientists should be enhanced much more, but even the enhancement of salaries of all other workers would have been to some extent, because government knows that these are not friendly times, and I expected an enhancement of workers' kind of pay, and also a promise of going forward. We've seen it done in all regions, but Uganda is still lagging behind. So because of this kind of budget, I expect more industrial action from workers. You'll be seeing it throughout the financial year.
All right, and I think we did hear today that the nurses actually, calling, they're calling their members for industrial action since scientists are being enhanced and somehow they were not considered scientists. Dr. Mumuza, on the budget and whether it responds to our our immediate issues, even looking forward.
It would be good to know what the nurses are if they are not scientists, because I know one of the criteria to become a nurse, you ought to have passed biology and chemistry. So, but these are the challenges. You can begin to rationalize away things by using all sorts of excuses. I think the way the budget is structured is supposed to be speaking to what do you want to deliver. So even before we say which sector got what, which program got what are they doing? Jen has rightly raised the issue of the Ministry of Trade. But I think sometimes the Ministry of Trade, I don't know where the problem is. They have undermined themselves. When people don't invite you, you want to ask, is the problem there or here? Am I relevant to them? Am I relevant to myself? This is a ministry where Parliament wanted not to release the budget for the Export Promotions Board because it has no board. So do you need a budget to appoint a board for the Export Promotions Board? It just comes from already what you've been funded with, salaries. Now, if your Export Promotions Board has no board, really, what are you doing with trade? Now, these are the questions you want to ask, that even if I gave them a budget, are they going to address the issues? Are they ready to address the issues if they can't even do these basics? So you want to question the commitment. Maybe we are going back. We have good policies which we never implement. So it's no longer it seems to be a budget issue. There is a deeper seated problem that you want to address, that no matter how big the budget is, you may not make headway. Those are some of the issues you're looking at. Trade negotiations is very good. Our biggest trading partners is Kenya, South Sudan, and the DRC. We go to negotiate in Europe to try and penetrate European markets. Here we may not have had any negotiations, but traders feel it. They will go to these nearby places, informal, formal, and whatever, because they can easily reach those places and they can't go to Europe. What are we doing to have even negotiations here without these neighbors within the EAC framework? We go to Arusha, officials will go there and they will come back with nothing. So we really sometimes want to look back, because here they're not asking for standards. South Sudanese and the Kenyans, and when they are buying, they just buy. the Europeans will begin to ask you to tick a number of boxes. Can we consolidate this that is sitting next to us? And I hear everybody is afraid African continental trade area is coming. You haven't even exhausted the ES which has been there and COMESA which has been there. Now you're getting excited with another terminology. So I think some of our issues are lying elsewhere. The budget, if I was to say anything about it, I think is already so constrained that the ministry does not have a lot of leeway to even address what it would want to address. True, we gave about 18 point something % of the budget to the human capital development. 14% or 16% of that budget went into governance and security. But when you look through where the budget is going, the constraints and the things binding up your budget, you'll find that a good portion of it is going into 16% domestic refinancing. This is not new money. It is money you owe people, and you're only balancing the books and saying, assume I have paid you and you have brought it back to me. Now, there is no money going there. That's 16% of your budget. Now, another 12%, which is 6 trillion, the other one is 8 trillion. 6 trillion is going into interest payment. This is not money that's going to speak to this year. If you didn't do well with what you borrowed, now you have to pay interest. And sometimes you are borrowing to pay back that. That already is taking you to 29% of your budget, not speaking to the needs of the day. Then you have external amortization. These are external loans. They are also 5%. So practically 35% of this budget is not speaking to the current challenges. And the Minister of Finance has no means of, because that's a given. So before you start, remove 35%.
Remove 35%.
Now we can begin to talk. Now, even when you come into the human capital development, that is where you're going to find your education. So many employees. So the bulk of it is salary. It's not even going to be speaking to the needs of the day. That children have gone back, it's COVID, how do I help the household that are poor to easily put their children back into school? Because it is simply salary and it's a given. Same thing with governance and security. This is where you have your bulk of public administration. Parliament the other day, 700, 800 billion. Then you have all their public administrators and all sorts of individuals. Does it speak? That's 14% of your budget. So when you look through, does the budget have flexibility to allow you respond to emerging issues? As I always say, it's like you are in a jam on a one way. The other right side of the road is empty. But you are stuck here. You can still switch off your engine, listen to Gabriel Igumon, wherever he is, on which radio or TV, and relax.
All right.
You don't want to find yourself there with a national budget in the middle of a pandemic of this nature.
All right. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Parliament was moved from the governance and security program, right?
Yeah, they moved out, created another arm,
yes.
which is, of course, they were looking for liberty or freedom and what. But
let's call it independence.
They are literally, it's part of governance in the legal language or the practical language of governance.
Okay, all right. We have to give our closing remarks because our time is fast spent. In a few minutes, we have to end. So I will start with you, Dr. Rogers, in your parting shot.
Yeah, I would say, like we've analyzed, we see there are big gaps. We should invest more into production, and we should have a conversation as a nation to get out of this kind of what Doctor called stuck jam, and we should do more consultation, we should do more research and plan better in the coming years if we are to get better results. And as a representative of workers, I urge government to work on increasing and at least having a minimum wage for this country.
All right, that conversation of minimum wage, quite touchy. But Madam Jane Nalunga, your parting shot.
Okay, thank you so much. I would just add on to comment on the issues which Dr. Mpumza has raised. I think the President also raised the issue of being frugal you know, prudent use of resources. I think it's important that we use our resources prudently. And I think it will go to reorganizing the economy, you know. For example, you remember the government entities, they were supposed to be brought together, rationalize them. We need to, for example, rethink that the administration budget has been talking about in education, in parliament, the energy sector. Government is paying for surplus generated, you know, electricity. Can we rethink all those? I think it's really, really important when we talk about the prudent use of our resources. It isn't a lot, but there is room for maneuver, really. And then, lastly, I think we need to ask ourselves, we talked about the issue of institutions. We need to ask ourselves, who is in charge of this economy? Because the buck has to stop somewhere when it comes to the economy. When you look at the history of Japan after the war, that institution, the most important institution was Ministry of Industry and Trade, MITI. And that was the buzzword, and they put money there, and the economy grew. If there are problems in the Ministry of Trade, we can't cut off our nose to spite our face. Something has to be done.
All right.
Thank you.
Dr. Muhumuza?
I think really it is strategy and leadership. You can't just bulldoze your way through. Even a buffalo and an elephant who have the muscles to go through the bushes use strategy. And I learn a lot from nature. Elephants would see the signs of the wind, the trees, the grass, and say the drought is coming. And they begin their trek, sometimes of 200 kilometers and more, to where they know the water stays, even when the hard times have come. So who is looking at Vision 2040, as we wrote it, and saying, are we on the right track? It's not right for ministers to say the economy is going to recover. All the data I am seeing, the trend is down. And it's not a question of COVID. It has been trending down for a number of these data. It's either flat or trending down. So I sometimes wonder, where are people picking the confidence to say the economy is going to recover? I mean, even doctors would say, this patient, sometimes they are kind enough to say, please, go and prepare. Or this patient, take home the remaining days. So when are we going to be realistic to our condition? Because until you take that level, the leadership that's not strategic will not take us anywhere. And good words can be there, but it's not about words.
All right.
Can we face the realities and stop Ukraine and Russia? And we say, what is wrong with us? And restructure our institutions, restructure our budgets, do what we must do as Ugandans.
Dr. Fred Muhumuza, economist, academic, researcher, Ms. Jane Nalunga, Executive Director at Siatini, Uganda, and Dr. Rogers, researcher and scholar, would like to thank you for being on The Big Debate tonight. Dear viewer, thank you very much for joining us for this edition of The Big Debate. We return next week with another edition of the show, but this conversation continues on our social media platforms. So please go there and remember to use the hashtag. From me and our guest for tonight, it's a good night. God bless you. Till next time, don't blink.